The thing that leaps out to me most, Brian, is how engaged a bipartisan Congress now is. They're using language like Representative Burchett said, it's time to take back our country. Representative Luna, it's unacceptable to gaslight Americans and tell them that this is not happening. Representative Moskowitz, we won't allow this to be used as a shield to keep the American people in the dark from basic truths. It's time for Congress to reassert itself. If there's nothing to conceal, let Congress go and look at the Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, the Dugway Proving Ground, and all the other Blackwell areas where they're allegedly concealing this material. Those are very strong statements from the political representatives.
Yeah, and we heard from David Grush, obviously, about this crash retrieval program, Michael. A lot of what he says is sort of secondhand knowledge. But when you talk about Fravor and Graves, two Navy pilots, one of them a Navy commander, this is firsthand knowledge. This is stuff that they've seen with their own eyes that they can describe in great detail. I mean, how big of a bombshell was this today, Michael? And where do you see things going from here?
Sure. I mean, it's obviously a huge moment. I just think it's shocking. I never thought we would see congressional hearings like this. I think we've basically gotten as far as we can with these witnesses. I mean, I thought the most significant thing today was Grush saying that he knows where the crash retrieval materials are located, the specific military bases or contractor facilities. He said he would tell members of Congress where that was in a secure compartmentalized information facility or a SCIF. They then said afterwards they tried to get access to a SCIF and were denied that. So, I mean, here you are, we're right up to the precipice of being able to basically go into these places and get it. The ball is now in the court of President Biden and the intelligence community to have to either allow members of Congress to get those materials or give some reason why they can't. We are ostensibly democracy that civilians control the military. The military doesn't control us.
Yep.
So this has moved from being a story about non-human intelligences to a story about abuses of power and about democracy and about the rights of the citizens to understand what our government is doing.
In terms of public pressure, Michael, where do you think things stand tonight? Because, we covered the hearings from beginning to end on NewsNation, uninterrupted so people could see for themselves. I glanced down, though, CNN, Fox, MSNBC, they didn't have the hearings live. Do you think this is breaking through with people? Because surely it's going to take people being interested to really pressure the government to disclose more information.
Yeah, I mean, I think, so first of all, compliments to NewsNation and certainly to Ross. I mean, you guys have done incredible work bringing attention to this. It also shows the power of the internet and people like Joe Rogan who have elevated these issues. And I think what you saw, the coverage by the Washington Post and the New York Times was perfunctory, inadequate. I think it's reflective of the obeisance that these mainstream news media have given to the intelligence community. We've seen it on other stories, non-UAP stories around abuse of power relating to the FBI, Department of Homeland Security, questions of censorship, other issues that we're concerned with. We see a similar deference to the intelligence, security, and military organizations. So in that sense, I think that's what this reflects. I think that there's still obviously taboo related to the topic, but it's significantly diminished. And that taboo exists mostly among elites, much less, I think, among the general public.
Yeah, I found it one of the most thrilling parts of my career to be working at a startup and not be working for the mainstream media and be covering this the way that we have. And it's been just interesting to see the way that it continues to be ignored by many outlets out there. Ross, I want to ask you something, though. Even if you're a skeptic, what I found so interesting about the hearings today is there's clearly something secretive going on. And there's this whole issue of a secret government program, whatever it is, being funded by taxpayers, like almost a stealth program that even Congress doesn't even know about, which led to all sorts of other questions today, like how is it even being funded? I mean, that seems like something that should concern every single American.
Well, it's funny. There are people in Congress, Brian, who do know about the program. This is the thing that I find fascinating is that the Senate Majority Leader, Chuck Schumer, his proposed legislation indicates very strongly and explicitly that there has been a cover-up. It's not if or maybe. He says categorically in his draft bill there has been a cover-up and that the purpose of the legislation is to elicit answers that are being withheld improperly by different people in the defence and intelligence community. And the reason why Majority Leader Schumer says that is because he has been briefed already about the transcripts of evidence derived by the Senate Intelligence Committee, where witnesses, including David Grush, have given that detailed information. And so Michael's quite right that the most significant thing of the evening to me as well was when David indicated very strongly that there is specific people, locations, program names. He's naming the names, he's saying the people who can be called to give evidence, and he's already done that. He's already provided that information to the Congress. The Senate Intelligence Committee is sitting on this information. The big question now is whether the public, whether we are going to be shared that information. And I have to say, I have my doubts.
It's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. It does feel like this was just the beginning, and he made very clear that he's willing to share more in a closed, confidential setting where he doesn't feel like he's violating his security clearances. So we'll see where this goes from here. Ross Coulthart and Michael Shellenberger, I can't think of two guys I'd rather be talking to tonight after such a big day. Thank you both for coming on tonight.
Pleasure.
Good to be with you.